Hi everyone, Kennedy here from the Ornament Girl, and today I'm going to show you how to create this adorable angel ornament. Welcome to the Ornament Girl, where we love sharing tips, tricks, and patterns for creating beautiful no-sew quilted ornaments all year long. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create the angel ornament in the two-tone variation, meaning we will be using two different fabrics to create color-blocked sections on the angel's dress, but be sure to check out the angel video library on the Ornament Girl's website to see lots of different fabric arrangement ideas for this ornament. This angel tutorial video will show you everything you need to know to create your angel ornament, but if you want even more ways to make this pattern, you can purchase this pattern in the Ornament Girls shop. When you purchase the angel pattern, you'll receive a full pattern ebook with step-by-step photos, a whole bunch of printable planning sheets that you can use to plan out your fabric placements, and a special bonus video showing how to create another angel ornament pattern using different fabric folds. If you're interested in purchasing the pattern ebook and all its bonuses, you can check out the link below the video. Now, for this exact ornament, I will be using an angel ornament kit from the Ornament Girl supply shop to create this beautiful autumn angel. If you purchase an angel kit from the Ornament Girls shop, you'll receive all the materials you need to create your angel. We love creating these kits to match the seasons, so be sure to check out the supply shop to see which angel ornament kits we have in stock today. You can, of course, make an angel using your own fabric and materials as well. Below the video, we've included a printable supply list that you can use to gather up all of the materials and fabric cuts you'll need to create this ornament. A quick reminder before we get started, this pattern, along with all Ornament Girl patterns, is copyrighted and it's illegal to teach or distribute it without our permission. If you have a friend you think would love to make this ornament, be sure to send them the link to this free video tutorial. Now, like I mentioned, I'll be using an angel kit from the Ornament Girl supply shop, and for the two-tone variation, you are going to need two fabric colors. Now, one of these fabric colors will make up 4 rows of the angel's dress, and the other fabric color will make up 2 rows of the angel's dress. So you can see here I have 4 rows of the floral fabric and 2 rows of the red. But I want to mention you could swap the position of these. So if you wanted the 2 rows to be at the bottom of the dress and the 4 rows to be at the top, that is totally an option. The number of fabric squares won't change. So for the color that will make up 4 rows, you will need 32 2-inch squares. And for the color that will make up 2 rows, you'll need 16 2-inch squares. So make sure you check the printed insert on your angel kit if you are using a kit from the Ornament Girl shop, so that you can make sure you know which color will have more rows on the angel's dress, and then you can just decide if you want that section at the top or the bottom. You will also need a 3-inch square of either of those fabric colors to cover the bottom of the angel, a soft foam angel shape, and satin straight pins. You'll want some string to wrap the head, so you could use white sparkle string like I have here, or you could use twine or even a different color. You'll want a large embellishment for creating the angel's halo, and some ribbon for creating her wings. And then in addition to that, you'll just want any extra embellishments that you'd like to add. You'll want to have some beads or rhinestones handy to cover any raw edges or pinheads that may be showing toward the end of the pattern. Additional tools you'll need to complete this pattern include fabric scissors, a flexible tape measure, and you'll also want some fabric glue. I'm going to be using tacky fabric glue here so that I can use that to glue the string to the head of the angel foam, but I have also used a little bit of hot glue before and that works well also. You could even try glue dots or some other type of fabric glue if you wanted, but you'll want something you can use to adhere the string to the round part of the angel foam. Again, if you are following along with this video using your own materials, be sure to check out the link below the video to grab your free printable supply list that you can use to gather up all of your fabric cuts and materials that you'll need. Once you have all of your materials gathered, we can begin creating the two-tone angel ornament. The first thing you are going to do is use your 3-inch square of fabric to cover the base of the angel. So you are going to lay this on the bottom of the foam, centered. You could even lay the square down and center it. You want the pattern side facing away from you so that you can center the foam on there. And then when you flip it over, you have the pattern side facing up. And you're going to smooth this square out and pin it in place in line with all 4 corners, about 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the foam. So my pins are coming up about 3/8 of an inch. And anytime you are pinning near the edge of the angel foam, you always want to angle toward the center. So right now I'm angling these pins down toward the center of the angel, because if my pin was angling this way, it could poke through the bottom and hurt me. So we don't want anyone accidentally poking themselves. So make sure you are always angling the pins toward the center of the foam. Once all 4 corners are pinned down, you are going to smooth down the sides and pin them, keeping these pins in a straight line about 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the foam. And now that you have the sides and the corners pinned down, we're just going to smooth down in between those and add about 2 more pins between each set, so that the fabric is just nice and secure, creating a straight pin line about 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the foam. And once you have that square piece of fabric pinned down all the way around the bottom of the angel, you are going to use your fabric scissors to just carefully trim away the fabric extending beyond those pins. And now that the base of the angel is covered, we can begin creating her dress. Now, I want to mention again that you will have 1 set of fabric squares that makes up 4 rows of the angel's dress, and 1 set of fabric squares that makes up 2 rows. However, you could put those 2 rows at the top or the bottom. So on this example, I used my red fabric at the top. For this ornament, I'm going to swap it and do my set of 2 red fabric rows at the bottom of the dress. Regardless of which color you're using at the bottom of the dress, whether it's 4 rows or 2 rows, you're still going to place the fabric pieces in the exact same way. So you can just decide how you want that fabric laid out on your ornament. I'm going to start with my set of 16 squares, and we are going to start creating the dress with these square folds. So to create the square fold, you are going to hold your square of fabric with the pattern side facing away from you and fold it in half and crease that fold. Now you're going to fold it in half the opposite way so that you now have a small folded square of fabric. Now hold this square shaped like a diamond with 2 folded edges on the left and 1 folded edge on the right, and then the raw edges should be at the top. And you are going to lay this on the ornament with the left and right corners of that diamond shape pretty much in line with the pin line that you created around the bottom of the ornament. And then you can pin that left-hand corner in place. We're going to leave the right-hand corner unpinned for now because we will just start to use the pin from the next piece to hold down that corner to save on some bulk and some pins. So now we're going to add our next piece in the same way with a square of the same fabric color. Hold this with the pattern side facing away from you and fold it in half and crease. Now fold it in half the opposite way and crease. Now hold this like a diamond with the raw edges at the top, 2 folded edges on the left and 1 folded edge on the right. And we're going to move to the right of the piece we just placed and we're going to overlap these corners. I like to overlap them by about 1/4 of an inch, but for this ornament, there is not a lot of precise measuring. You could choose to place your pieces closer together if you wanted, or spread them a little bit further apart without leaving a gap between them. I like to use about 6 pieces per row, but you have enough fabric cut to use up to 8 pieces per row. So each person will make it a little bit differently. You can just sort of measure with your heart here and overlap those corners by about 1/4 of an inch. And when you pin the left corner in place, you are going to catch some of the fabric from the previous piece holding down that right corner. And now we're just going to do that again. So I'm folding my square in half twice with the pattern side outward. Hold that like a diamond with 2 folded edges at the bottom left. And then moving to the right of the piece I just placed, making sure I'm still creating a straight line with these corners in line with the pin line that I added. I'm going to overlap these pieces and pin at the left corner. And again, I will probably end up using about 6 pieces because I'm already halfway around and I've only used 3 pieces. But if you want to use 8 pieces per row, 7 or 8 pieces, you could put these closer together. I'm just going to do the same thing to add the next few pieces until I return back to the beginning of the row. Now I am at the point where I only need 1 more square to fill the rest of the gap for this layer. And what you could do is just pin it at the left and right corners, letting it overlap on the left and right sides. I find it a little easier to hide the pin heads later if I keep my overlapping pattern consistent. So I'll show you what I mean here. I'm going to lay down my piece just like I would and pin it at the left corner. But instead of pinning it at the right corner on top of this first piece, I'm going to unpin the left corner of the first piece and move it out of the way, lay down my new piece, and then bring the left corner of the first piece back into place and pin. So now my pins are more equally spaced and I kept that overlapping pattern consistent. Again, I used 6 pieces. I like to spread them out a little more, but you have enough fabric cut to use 7 or 8 pieces in this row if you want your fabric points a little closer together. Now we are going to create the next row in the same way, just moving it up a little bit. So you are sticking with the same fabric color. You are going to fold this in half, twice with the pattern side facing outward, and hold your little folded square in the exact same way, holding it like a diamond with the raw edges at the top and 2 folded edges on the bottom left. Now I'm going to use the bottom point of this piece to cover up one of the pins here, and you want the tip to sit about a 1/2 inch above the bottom tip of the previous layer. So you can use your flexible tape measure here to measure, and it looks like the tip of my fabric is about a 1/2 inch above, but you don't really have to measure every time. Like I said, you can just sort of feel it out, and if you get to the top and you need to go back and adjust things, you can. But what we're really trying to do is cover that pin from the previous layer. So I'm just centering this square between 2 squares from the first row and pinning at the left corner, and it's about a 1/2 inch above the previous row. So you can see there's about a 1/2 inch between those points. Now I'm just going to work my way around just like I did on the first row, moving to the right, trying to keep everything pretty lined up and straight, and I'm covering the pin from the previous row with my folded fabric square and just pinning at the left corner making sure I catch a little bit of the previous piece so that they're both pinned down with the same pin. And I'm just going to continue to work my way around until I've returned back to the starting point of this row. Now I have returned to the point where I only need one more fabric square. I'm going to do the same thing I did on the previous layer. I'm going to pin the left corner in place, but to pin the right corner, I'm going to unpin the left side of that first piece, lay down my new piece, and then return the left side of that first piece back into place and pin. That way my pins are a little bit more equally spaced and that overlapping pattern is consistent. Now I chose to use my set of 2 rows at the bottom of the dress. So I'm at the point where I am switching to my next fabric color, but if you are doing your 4 rows at the bottom, you are going to stick with the same fabric color for the next 2 rows here. So I'm switching to my second fabric color, but we are still going to prep the pieces and pin them in the exact same way. So with the pattern side facing outward, you're going to fold this in half twice and crease. Hold it like a diamond with the raw edges at the top and 2 folded edges on the left. And now we're working to cover the pins from the previous layer. And we're still moving up by about 1/2 inch from the previous layer as well. And again, this pattern does not require precise measuring. It doesn't have to be perfect. And it might not even sit perfectly centered between the tips from the previous layer. You just want to make sure that you are placing this where the pins from the previous row will be covered. And then pin at the left-hand corner. And repeat that all the way around the row. So I'm just folding this square in half twice again, holding it in the correct direction, and then moving to the right, covering up that next pin from the previous layer. And if you can't cover every pin, if there's something a little bit weird happening with spacing or anything like that, that is okay because that's what all of our embellishments are for. So if there are a couple raw edges or pin heads sticking out from the previous layers, don't panic too much because we will be able to cover those up with embellishments. You don't want to be too worried about making sure everything's perfect because this ornament is just a little bit more free form and it's not too precise. So you don't want to get too caught up in the details. But just like the previous row, you're just going to move to the right each time, doing your best to cover the pins from the previous layer and moving up by about 1/2 inch so that we're working our way up, creating that dress from the bottom going upward. Now that I have reached back around to the beginning of the row, I'm going to add my final piece just like I did on the previous layers, making sure to overlap that first piece to keep that overlapping pattern consistent. And now that I have 3 rows complete, I am going to move on to row 4 and complete it in the exact same way. Since we're moving up the cone shape of the angel, your pieces are going to start to sit closer together because it's just not as much space around the foam. And that is totally okay. If you want to even start placing 1 or 2 less pieces just to make a little bit more space, that is totally fine. But again, I'm just doing my best to cover the pin from the previous layer And even if it doesn't all get covered, that is fine because we'll use embellishments to help cover up pins and raw edges later. So I'm just going to work my way around placing this row 4, just like I did all the previous rows. Now I have completed row 4, and if you were doing your 4 fabric rows of the same color at the bottom of the dress, now is the point where you would switch fabric colors for these next 2 rows. The 5th row is completed exactly the same way, so just creating your square folds, moving upward by about half of an inch, and making sure you are covering those pins wherever you can. At this point, the top edges of your fabric should be really close to the bottom edge of the angel head there. So if you need to move up a little extra, even if that shows some raw edges and pins from the previous layer, we will cover those up with embellishments. So you want the tip of this layer to be pretty much just below the bottom edge of the rounded part of the foam. Go ahead and complete this layer just like you did the previous rows. Now you can see that from my previous row, I still have some raw edges and pins showing, but I'm not worried about that because I know I'll be able to replace them with embellishments once we are finished. Now the 6th row of your ornament is going to be created with sail folds instead of square folds. So instead of folding your square in half this way, you are going to hold it diagonally with the pattern side facing away from you and fold it in half so that the top point meets the bottom point and crease. So now you've created a triangle. Now fold that triangle in half the opposite way and crease so that you have an even smaller triangle. And again, you are going to hold this with the raw edges at the top and 2 folded edges on the left. And this is how you are going to place them on the ornament for this layer. And that gives us a straight edge that we can have up toward the line between the head and the body on the angel. And this round is not going to be perfect. You do want to still just try to cover up the pins from the previous row, but if you can't, that's totally fine. And you want to angle your pins downward. So now the center of the foam is below us instead of above where we're working. You don't want to poke straight through this thin section of the foam and accidentally hurt yourself with a pin. Now you can move to the right with each piece. I sort of like to go opposite because it makes the overlapping line up a little bit better. So I'm going to fold another square in half diagonally and then fold it in half from left to right and crease, holding that triangle with the raw edges at the top and 2 folded edges on the left. Instead of just moving over to the right, I'm actually going to just jump completely opposite of the piece I just placed. And I'll probably end up only doing about 4 pieces for this row, but again, you have enough to do all the way up to 8. So you can add as many of these folded triangles as you would like. So now that I have those two pieces placed, I'm going to place another one in between each of them. And I'll show you why I like to do it that way rather than just moving directly to the right. It's because when I add this next piece, it's going to cover up the corners of those first two pieces I placed, and you're going to end up with less raw edges and pins to cover at the end because we're not just doing one pin to the right each time. And again, I don't have these pieces from the previous layer covered up. I could sort of shift over here to cover up those pins, and maybe I'll end up with 6 pieces for this layer. We'll have to see. Like I said, you just sort of measure with your heart, do whatever feels good, because if all of the pin heads aren't covered up, we're going to cover them up with embellishments later. So you can just keep working your way around, adding these sail folds to create that final row of the dress. Once you've added all of the pieces that you'd like to use for that final row, your dress on your angel is complete, and you can see I have plenty of pinheads sticking out here, so if you have that too, you are not alone. But in a little bit, we're going to replace all of those with embellished pins, and it will look nice and beautiful. Now that the dress is complete, we can wrap the angel's head in some string. For this step, you will need your glue and your string. In the Ornament Girl kit that I'm using, I have this white sparkle string, but you can experiment with lots of different colors and materials. And you can use tacky glue like I'm going to use here, or you could use hot glue. If you're using hot glue, you just want to do one little dot at a time because it hardens so quickly. But with this tacky glue, you can actually start to sort of add little stripes at a time. For this first round, I'm doing those horizontally to make sure that I can really secure the string. And we're going to start the string at the base of the head. Your fingers might get a little gluey here, and that's totally okay. Nothing wrong with getting a little messy while you're crafting. And now that I have it wrapped around the base, I'm going to add some vertical lines of glue here so that I can keep wrapping around and catch the string in that glue as I go. And depending on how fast or slow your glue dries will sort of affect how much glue you want to add at one time. But I am just wrapping this string all the way around the head, catching some glue wherever I can. And this can be a little finicky, but if you don't get it absolutely perfect, that's totally okay. One of the benefits of using white string is if there is a little bit of a foam gap showing in between the string pieces, you won't notice too much because it's the same color. If you were using a colored string for this, you could always try painting the angel head before wrapping it. So for example, if I was using pink string, I might take a marker or some paint and paint the head pink so that if there was any foam showing between the strings, it wouldn't stand out too much. I'm just going to keep wrapping, and I'm getting sort of to the top of my glue lines here, so I'm going to start to add some more. And it does get a little tougher as you get to the top of the head because things become a little bit more narrow and they want to slide around, but you're just going to take your time, enjoy the process, and keep wrapping that string all the way up the head of the angel foam. Once you get to the top half of the head, the string wants to sort of slide upward. I like to try to push it back down toward the previous round of string to keep everything nice and tight together and not get too many gaps of foam showing in between there. Now, when you reach to the very top here, you are sort of coiling that string in. You can't really wrap it using too much tension anymore, or you will pull it out of place, but you can sort of just coil it around so that it fills right in that whole little circle of foam at the top here. And depending on what glue you used, you might want to just hold it in place here at the top for a little bit, just to help it set. Hot glue sets pretty fast, but this tacky glue, I like to just hold on to it for a second so that it can really catch and dry in place. I don't want to pull it out of place. Once the entire head is wrapped and you're feeling confident that the top of your string is secured in the center there, you can very carefully cut off the excess. And if you have extra, you could set this aside to use it as an ornament hanger or add it to the wings if you wanted. And now that all of the foam is covered, we can begin embellishing the angel. The first thing I'm going to do is create her ribbon wings, and in this particular angel kit, I have some wider ribbon and some thinner ribbon. Depending on the angel kit you are using, you may have a few different ribbon options. I'm going to start with the wider ribbon here, and to create the wings, you are just going to pin through one end of the ribbon, and then move down a few inches and fold that ribbon up and pin right through it again. So we've created a loop here. That loop is probably about 2.5 inches wide, but you could play around with different sizes. Now I'm going to pull up another loop and pin, and repeat that a couple more times, looping and pinning this ribbon to create a little set of angel wings. And it's not going to be perfectly even or perfectly spaced, and that's okay. And if you want to restart, all you have to do is pull the ribbon off of the pin and just try again. Mine are a little bit lopsided, but I'm just going to try it, and if I want to change them later, I can. Now you're going to pin this to the back center of the angel. I have a little bit of a gap showing here, so I'm going to make this the back of the angel and pin just a little bit below the head at the back of the angel, and then when you flip this over, you can see you've got some wings. You could make them more spread out like I have them here, or you could put them a little closer together. You can just play with different ways of looping and pinning that ribbon. And now, since I have a second ribbon to work with here, I'm just going to do the same thing. On my first angel, I put this thin red ribbon toward the front of the wings, but on this version, I'm going to put it at the back. There's lots of different ways. Even if you have a kit that comes with specific embellishments, you can always add them in different ways to add your own little unique touch. Now that I've created this second set of ribbon wings, I'm just going to pin them right on top of the first set. And now she has some beautiful, colorful, layered wings. and we can add the rest of the embellishments. So again, I want to show you there are some different options here. For this angel, I used a pearl head pin or a crystal head pin for the halo. For this one, I'm going to use that to embellish the back center of the wings, just like that. And then to pin the halo on, I'm going to use a pin threaded with one of my gold beads here. And you can turn this a couple different ways. You could have it pinned straight on the top, or you could line it up at the back center so that it sort of sticks up when you're looking at her. Again, a couple different ways you can pin the halo. And now the embellishments we have left are these little beads and rhinestones and some gold sequin pins in this particular kit. I'm going to replace these pin heads with an embellished pin. So you could thread a pin with an embellishment and just try to pin it right next to that pin head that's showing, but I like to actually just hold the fabric in place, pull that pin that's showing out, and then replace it with my embellished pin. And if you're not using gold sequin pins, you could just pull your silver pin out, thread it with a bead, and then return it right back to where it was. So I'm just going to work my way around the ornament, replacing any pins that are showing. With a pin that's threaded with a bead or rhinestones. So go ahead and do the same, looking all around the angel and replacing any exposed pins with a bead or another embellishment of your choice. Once you have covered all of the raw edges and pin heads with your embellishments, you could even add a few extra beads. I had some left over here that I didn't need to use to cover a pin head, so I just scattered them throughout the ornament. But once you have added all of the embellishments, your two-tone angel is complete. I hope you really enjoyed following along this tutorial with me, and I can't wait to see all of the beautiful angels that you create with this pattern. Remember to check out the link below the video to grab the ebook and printable coloring sheets that you can purchase to accompany this pattern as well. And if you have any questions, be sure to let us know in the comments below the video. As always, happy ornamenting!